Hi, Kasper.
Hi, Kasper.
Today is a special day.
Yeah.
You know why?
I guess because we're more than two Kaspers.
Yeah. So we talked about it after our last episode. Mm-hmm. We agreed that it was not enough Kaspers on this podcast.
Yeah.
So today we are happy to welcome Kasper Rasmussen, who is co-founder of Accutics, a software company, creates a platform for data quality, for data alignment in marketing data.
Maybe Kasper should introduce himself instead of you introducing.
Oh yeah, okay.
Kasper.
I got confused by
you got carried away.
Welcome, Kasper.
So if you start with your name.
I'm Kasper. Kasper with a K.
Nice.
Yeah. Okay. I have our technical background from the consultancy world, and started Accutics 7 years ago because there was an imminent need for data quality. How would any optimize the budgets if they don't know the truth, right? Where should they spend money? So that was the basic foundation where the idea came from.
Cool. Yeah.
Yeah. And I guess that this is also the topic that we really love to dive into today is the shared data language, because it's a topic that you've been talking a lot about and have been inspiring a lot of people about, and I know you use it in your business meetings as well as in how we can talk about data quality. So for a term that has been thrown a lot around, what is data quality? What is the shared data language?
Yeah, I will start with the shared data language. And I mean, the easiest way to look at it is how many languages do we have in the world? A lot. If you were speaking French and you're German and I'm Danish, how would we ever communicate? It's going to be difficult. But we have kind of like established this kind of like shared language where we all speak English. And suddenly we can actually start talking together. We understand each other. We know what the words mean. We know what the sayings mean, etc. It's kind of like the same for marketing, establishing this shared language where the platforms, our tools, our teams, departments, business units, everyone speaks the same language, use the same foundation, so we can start interacting with each other, start comparing bits and bytes across borders, across units, across channels, across touch points, and we know what it means.
Yeah. Super interesting. And as a listener to this, can you talk a bit more about, obviously we're the listeners, but for every listener out there, can you talk a bit more about what are the steps to getting the data language and to activating this process?
I think I think actually it's more than just a thing, because now we've been working with quite a few companies across the world in establishing a shared data language. And a lot of the effort is within the organization. Obviously, there are tools that needs to be embedded and carry out the actual day-to-day work. But it's an organizational change or decision that we want to establish this shared data language here, because it's a people process. If people doesn't follow the process, I mean, you can have the best tools in the world, but if people don't follow them and use them, how good are we? So establishing a shared data language starts with the persons, start with the people, figuring out what are the moving parts of the business, who are using data, and what are they using it for. I might be schooled a bit on the consultancy aspect here, but if data is only used for reporting and dashboards, is it relevant? When we start acting on it, when we start optimizing, when we start using the data to drive decision or drive change. If it's just a number on the dashboard, then it's pretty, but is it good?
But isn't that another aspect? Isn't that when you go from... So I'll take a step back. So coming from my world, when we talk about a shared data language, that would be coordination between IT and marketing, as an example, right? What is it that we're collecting in the data layer that goes into a schema that shows up in Adobe Analytics as dimensions and metrics? So whenever there's a metric called revenue, everybody knows what revenue represents.
Yes.
That's how you see shared data language as well, or are you seeing it differently?
No, that would be a part of the shared data language.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then for me, then we have reporting, dashboards, and I completely agree that if we're not doing analysis on the data, we're not getting value from it, right? We're just establishing numbers went up, hey, numbers went down. Let's see what happens next week, right?
Yeah.
But isn't that two different things? That we have the analysis part, which isn't necessarily depending on the shared language. I mean, it's the quality and the foundation for being able to do analysis. Right?
I think it's a good catch, but I also think that seeing that when we establish the shared data language in the journey towards getting there. I mean, and also important to say, I mean, you're never there 100%. It's an evolution. It will always change. We have some clients we're working with where they think they can establish like a taxonomy for the language, and then it's done. That's not how it works. It evolves with the business needs. But to your point, Kasper, yes, you're right. It's for the quality of the data. But we also need to make sure that the individuals that are creating the data, creating media activations, or creating journeys and emails and CMs, etc., they understand what data they're actually collecting and reporting on. Because if you don't have this understanding down at the I call it the activation layer of the people that are actually generating the data, the tendency or the engagement to consistently follow the process goes down. Simply just because they don't know where the data ends up. They don't know how the data is used. They don't know what it's meant for. They don't know what are the outcome of this. Why do I need to make sure that my activities are tagged up correctly every single day if I'm not making any decisions based on it? So getting that into the mindset of the people that are creating it also creates this, not just a data foundation, but creates a foundational aspect to the people so they know, why am I doing this? And what can I use it for?
Interesting.
Yeah. What are some of the... now you mentioned a lot of like the data language, and in terms of your question and seeing it represented on a dashboard, how does the data language, shared data language, impact the outcomes that these companies are trying to do? Because I guess that's the end goal of the shared data language.
It is, absolutely, and it's also to spark collaboration, so to say, and trustworthy data in the collaboration. There's so many examples that one could draw upon here, but take segments definitions. I mean, as a marketeer, you may target small, medium businesses. From a financial point of view, I regard them as under 5 million US a month, or operations might see them as a line item in 478 in a spreadsheet. It's simply just enabling us to look at the data from the same angle. We know what it is. We know what does prospecting mean? What does targeting mean? What does brand awareness mean? What does generic? What does it mean when we run something on Meta? Is that Meta alone? Is it Instagram? Is it split? I mean, where should we put our money? We need to have all these understandings in place.
And how, in practical terms, does it look? Because you mentioned before that it's not that's a difficult word. Taxonomy.
On the spelling board.
And I guess, I mean, you being from consulting side as well, you also know, the solution design reference that Adobe Analytics used, and with EVAs and props. And I guess that's a taxonomy of to some degree, right? But I guess it's not just a mapping when you talk about a shared data language, right?
No, it's much more. It's how different levels can talk the same. I mean, speak together essentially.
Yeah.
Because a shared data language is not just a campaign name in a media platform. A shared data language is the campaign name, but also the ad set and the ad and the placement name and the UL tagging and the briefing document and everything, such that when we start analyzing the data, to your point, where we can draw decisions following that, we have a red thread, we have a link between from the briefing phase to the planning, to the trafficking, the activation, to the conversions happening or the visits happening on the website with potential conversions and the reporting. So we can tie it all together. And that is part of the shared data language because it spans more than just naming conventions. Some think of it as tracking parameters in ULs. UTEMs, it's like, I mean, everybody knows UTEMs. Nobody knows what it stands for.
Universal tagging management.
Love it. You want to give a guess, Kasper?
So that's because I'm an Adobe guy. They use CID, which is campaign ID. Yeah. So I mean, I'm excused.
Yeah. And we have a CMP ID, so CMP is it. All the C's.
ICID.
The many abbreviations.
I would say, I think it's the Urgent Tracking Module. It's called Urgent before Google.
That's right. Yeah.
Whatever. But it's informing data standards into UTM parameters. I mean, that's also part of the shared data language. It's data standards. That's a subset of the language that we have. So it's a lot.
I guess when you initially mentioned shared data language, I'm thinking of a dictionary, or translation of looking up a word in German and see what it is in Danish, right? But it's way more than just that. It's more like a concept of making sure that departments work across and are aware of what each other are doing and what impact Department A has on Department B? Or
Yes. I will take our example. We're working with a client. They have hundreds of brands present in 80, 90 markets, I believe, running marketing across all digital channels, paid, owned media, offline communications, affiliates, agencies are running it, internal employees are running it. How would you ever, from a business perspective, know what market, what brand should have what budget for the next year without having a consistent way of reporting on the trafficking efforts that you have across them? So this just means now, that was a huge tree I just described there. Mm-hmm. It means that the social media team in Hungary needs to use a standard that the social media team in Germany are sharing. And a subset of that social media taxonomy might be used for the search campaigns in UK as well. Mm-hmm. And the reason why I now suddenly say a subset of it and not the 100% is because the shared data language also needs to be tailored to the requirements by media activations. Okay, boom, now a lot of stuff just happened here. But imagine that if we can tailor or if we can streamline 80% of the data across everything. Yes, then there'll be some differentiation in the markets. They might, France might have a requirement to track, I don't know, the creative format, for instance, or something else, right? We'll still need to make them able to do that. Otherwise, we're going to have a whole market that say, oh, we can't use that's the global standard because it doesn't align with our requirements. Mm. So they still need to have that flexibility. But if you can align, I'm saying 80% here, across the business units, across the markets, across the brands, suddenly we have, from a business perspective, we have a way to actually report on the performance across all our activities. How good are the markets doing benchmarking each other with the rest? Because we have this mutual understanding of what it is.
That makes sense. And for those who succeed doing so, mm-hmm. How much do you see as process and how much is people? Like you mentioned that people is important.
Yes, it's people. People needs to be heard in order to be part of it. At least that's my view in it. If you're not felt heard, why would you follow the group? But it's also important from the value part. When we are defining these standards here, when I say data standards, you mentioned taxonomies, Kasper. Taxonomies are more like the, not the tech tool, but more like the tool to write out standards across things. It's rules, right? Rule patterns. In order to do that, we need to know what the stakeholders require. Again, in the markets, in the channels, in the business units. So there's this interview phase where we need to have the baseline. And that's the people process, because then people are feeling heard while we also gathering the requirements to create a good shared data language. And when people feel heard, they're also more open for following new paths because they can see the results. Of course, we want to tell them the result. What does it mean?
But there needs to be some kind of process around it
Exactly.
to make people do the same things, right?
And this is something that's very much up in the time here, because data governance has made its way to the big meeting rooms. And data governance, I know you went to a conference recently, Kasper, where governance spanned broad.
Absolutely.
And it's more than just marketing. Governance could also be in supply chain. It could be manufacturing. It could be HR. It could be anything, essentially. Now we're talking about a marketing aspect. But what was the question?
Back to process, actually. So when we talk about the shared data language, we know that people is important, as you explained.
Yes.
But there must go something into the process that people need to follow to, like, we need a dictionary of English to all speak English, kind of. What are some of the process things that goes into this for companies?
One thing that we have experimented a bit with to get this really established into the business is saying to the people, saying to the markets, we have now established this global structure, this global language that we're using across our marketing activities. If you are following it, which you are supposed to, but if you are following it, we have built out this whole set of reporting tools and optimization patterns, and we have these resources, data resources that are available to you. But it does require that you follow the pattern that we have set the shared data language, because otherwise it doesn't follow into the system, so we can't act on it. So it's also giving something back to the users that are actually consuming the idea of a shared data standard.
So I guess in my world let me see. It's also part of the documentation, right? Because we would also outline, here are the steps you need to take if you want to be tracking external campaigns, right? So you can get this dashboard populated, where you get the following insights, whatever, right? And I guess that falls under your shared data language as well. I guess that term has lots of pillars in it. Documentation being one, process being one. I guess there's more as well, right? But
there's more.
Because I guess from our perspective, we've been talking into it as well. We haven't coined the term shared data language, but we've been talking in documentation, the process.
Yeah, the pillars directly, right?
The pillars specifically, right? Without coining them under the term shared data language, right?
Yeah.
So in the beginning, when you talked about it, I had a hard time figuring out what it means in practical terms, right? Is it just a big Excel spreadsheet where, in the CRM system, the metric is called it. In Adobe Analytics, it's called this. In your, but it's actually the existence of multiple things.
Yes,
of these pillars, right?
It is.
The structure, the governance, the process, the documentation.
Yes, it is. And the thing I forgot to say before is the ownership part. Yes, that's also, it's one of the most critical pieces of the puzzle here. That's establishing the ownership of a shared data language. Who owns the data standards that we are embedding into our business? And I've seen examples where marketing has taken that role. Fewer examples where analytics has taken it. But I would say they're equally prone to errors is the wrong term. Failure is very negative. But the thing is, when you have a marketing department that are responsible for data standards, I will say 9 out of 10 times it will favor the marketing situation.
Yeah, I think it doesn't matter which owns it, right?
And the same thing for analytics, right?
Yeah.
Then it's going to be, if analytics is going to be could be like very tech heavy, like we want to capture all these 117 attributes, and marketing, like, we don't need that.
Exactly.
So there needs, in my view, and where we have seen the best cases, that's where the companies have realized they need to establish a separate team that are responsible for the data that we're using in the business. And then that team could be more than a marketing shared data language. It could be something else as well. But at least there's a team that are responsible for the data quality in that.
It's a shared ownership.
It's a shared ownership, right?
Yeah.
And they have mandate to move and make some decisions, or at least go down to the ones that are not following and say, we need you to follow here or something. I mean, clearly the most successful path we're seeing for now. Because also when there are changes to it, when you're sitting in, I don't know, Australia, and you have your team meeting with the social team, and you figure out, hey, we actually need to measure, I don't know, creators sizes or the types of ads. Is it a reel or whatever it's going to be, video? And then you're like, who should I talk to get that into the standard? Oh, it should be clear who owns the data and they can speak with and have that feedback, because otherwise they're losing touch of that standard. There's so much talk we need to say about the standard when you send the system and all that, but we're going back to that. But they're losing touch of that. Like, there needs to be clear ownership.
Yeah. And when you say ownership, it's not a center of excellence.
No, I don't think so. No.
I heard you talk about it before, like in terms of the optimization truth versus the business truth versus these things that I guess feeds very much into this as well with the cross ownership that you mentioned.
Well, now you're opening
Pandora's box.
I would say a can of worms, but that's the same thing. But I mean the whole attribution part, right? Because it also, of course, the shared data language are one of the building blocks towards attribution. I'm not going to say accurate attribution because it's so much, but towards working with attribution. And of course, there's always the well-known battle of direct versus data-driven versus U-shape versus anything else. And that's on the attribution side. And then we have the paid media side versus the analytics part, because then paid media, they're still sitting in platforms. Silos has a negative wording to it, but I mean, it's perfectly fine in this matter here. They're sitting and optimizing within their, I'm just saying Meta, everybody knows Meta, sitting in Meta Business Manager and optimizing their campaigns. But I would say that's the optimization truth when we look at attribution there. Whereas when we start looking at the data, I mean, Adobe data, SDR-based data, and all that, that's the business truth. That's the cross-channel. They're using an attribution where you can use this for budget allocation, budget splits, and essentially value-driven optimizations from the business perspective. Whereas the marketing departments, they're working in the media platforms, driving optimization patterns within the media platform, because they are fantastic at that, but they don't have the full picture. I mean, the social team have no idea what happens in search or in display or in Salesforce or whatever. They're laser focused on optimizing the spend within the social part, which is fine. But we need to have another truth as well, another view on it, which is above it. I don't think they can live without each other, but we need to see it from the business part as well.
Yeah, and you see this shared data language tying these things
exactly.
together.
That's where we can start tying the different touch points, the different channels together, so tying the different optimization truths together to form the business truth in the top. Bit abstract here.
No, not at all. I think it makes great sense, and it's one of the challenges that also, for many, I imagine, makes it a tough. Like anything that goes cross business is always complex when we talk large organizations. It's always complex.
Exactly, and we need to realize that the click number in the media platform will never correspond to the visit number. I mean, and when we have the allocations for revenue, I mean, of course, when I buy my new pair of shoes, we're gonna have conversion pixels back to Meta and to Google Ads and to CM360, so they will all report on a conversion back on that on their own attribution models. So the numbers will never align, and that's just a fact that we need to accept. But they're also used for different purposes. Some numbers in the platforms are used for optimization in the platforms, and other values are used for reporting cross-channel across our business here. How are we doing across? Yeah.
But I think that's also the biggest source of gaining lack of trust in the data, because the platforms are so different, right?
Yes.
And I mean, we've had scenarios where even though we explain why the numbers are different and they're used for different things, there's still no understanding of what,
No.
Right? So it's like a battle you'll never win to some degree, right? With some at least.
Exactly. I think that it's the battle part, because we are spending so much time arguing about what number is correct instead of accepting that there are two versions of the truth, at least two versions of the truth.
Yeah.
And that's just how it is, because they're used for different purposes. Actually, we had a client where we talked about this net of the two different truths of the data, attribution data here. And they're like, oh, we've never thought about that. I mean, that we should just accept it and they're used for different purposes.
Yeah.
Because yes, Kasper, I mean, a consultant back 15 years ago, I had the first attribution question. Why is it direct? I mean, why are my clicks not matching? What's the cost here? What's the revenue? Yeah, I don't know. But now I also come to a point here and say, well, it's actually the truth. There are two versions, then they will never align.
Yeah.
And I guess then, as part of the shared data language, then you decide which numbers are we reporting where, so that we avoid that there's two numbers on the same metric or KPI, being, with different numbers being reported, right? Because I think that's what we're seeing sometimes as well, right? That there's a department receiving the same metric that are showing different numbers because they're coming from two different systems, right?
Yes, exactly.
So I guess part of that shared data language is also making sure that it's, this is the official metric we're using for this dashboard or for this reporting. And when we use the other one, it's for the optimization purposes.
Exactly. And it's also tying numbers together, because certainly we have our common understanding of what goes on in the platform, using the same methodology or the same language description for the naming in the platform, but also using it's the same as we're using for the tracking part when it happens on the website. But there's this path, right? You have media activations, all the ads, when the user interacts with some of them, goes to the website for hopefully a conversion. That path there, the click to the website, that's where we can carry over information. There are click IDs for media platforms, and there are UTM parameters and Adobe CID codes and Piano and whatever they have here. But that's it's like a transportation. It's a marketing transportation layer, right? Carrying information from the activity, to the exposure over here to the website. And when we suddenly can start tying what is being trapped on the website, which we then link to the conversion, tie that back to what happened in the media platform. We can do this by a shared data language, because suddenly we have the media platform naming is named in a language that we also use for the campaign tracking. Then we start seeing the true link between top funnel metrics, engagements, definitions, and all that towards the whole journey on the website and touch points and cross-channel visits, etc. That's where I find it very interesting.
Yeah, and I guess from working with a lot of larger organizations, like global brands, who are very ambitious about their data, because that's why they are forerunners in these things. Are there trends that you're seeing? Now you mentioned the shared data language across the functions and cross company and stuff like this. Are there things that you're seeing that indicate success in these implementations?
I think I can see there's been a tendency for the past years. I think it happened during COVID or something, because initially we were very focused on creating tracking codes. It was very analytics oriented. Get some data into Google or Adobe or whatever platform it should be. And it was difficult to really penetrate the businesses with good data. Then during 2020 and 2021, we saw much more attention from the media departments. They were actually engaging and saying, we need data standards within the media platforms. And that was a step towards naming conventions. So moving from just tracking codes and URLs towards naming conventions within platforms like a Salesforce Marketing Cloud or Meta, Google Ads, and AdForm, etc. Simply because there's so much reporting going on in there as well, which relies on consistent naming and accurate naming. And I think a good measurement here for success is when you realize that as the business, that you don't only look at website data, because so much happens on the top funnel as well, brand awareness and all these campaigns, and there's all the technicalities in the world right now where parameters are being stripped, and also the truth that we see on the website are not 100%. It's getting more to an estimation, so to say, based on, of course, actual visits. But companies have realized that they need to focus on the platforms as well and start using this data for being more clever with the spend and optimizing it. And the only way they can really do that is informing standards at that top level as well. Yeah. So I think it's like a realization point that tells me something about the maturity of the business.
So they focus more on real data that is than argumented data. So getting the quality, if we go back to that, getting the quality up to a level and getting the level of data up to a level where we can trust it.
Yeah, because I think if you only look at analytics, I mean, of course, we have insights into those visitors that makes it through extensions and everything, blocking and so on. So as soon as we can then tie that back to the marketing platform where we actually are seeing, I mean, that's why the optimization happens, right? If you only look at, if you make changes here only based on something that happens very, very far away with different attribution models and all, I mean, the impact's going to be difficult and maybe not as great as we would like them to be. If you can take the analysis, the data we have here, and actually start enforcing optimization patterns right here with, I mean, directly at the source, it's much more powerful.
That's very interesting. If
What-
you
Yes,
No, no.
What would be the process or the steps a company should take, like the top 5 steps, whatever, to enforce this and build their own shared data language? Where do they need to start? What's the first step?
I think, I mean, that they need to start in the decision that, is this something that we believe in as a company? Not something that someone has told us that we should do. Do we want to trust the data that we're capturing? Do we want to rely on the data that we're capturing across this and base our decisions on data as well? Because if they can say yes to all that, I mean, then we make the decision that we need a shared data language. We need a language for this to happen. And we need they need to establish a team, or could be one person to begin with, that runs with the ownership of this. It may be the hardest part because there's a lot of responsibility in that job, but runs with it and it will pay out for sure.
I guess that decision needs to happen at a certain level as well.
It needs to have buy-in from a higher level, because it needs to be a business decision, not like a market decision. It needs to be a business decision, business driving this change in here. It might not be a change. It might be something that they have wanted for 5 years, 10 years, but haven't really had the impact so people understood it. But setting that scene will make. And that's kind of like the frame for it, because now we have ownership. We have said, cool, this is something that we want to do. Then we can start on the actual work. And that will be interviewing markets and channel owners. What data are we actually using? What data are we collecting already? What are we using for? What are you using to optimize the media spending Google Ads? What are you using to optimize the journeys? I mean, what are we working with here? And it takes a lot of rounds here to gather that feedback across markets and stakeholders. And all that information goes into our, I'm going to say a big spreadsheet, but a big pile of information that needs to be digested and structured and ordered in a way where we have a similarity between our markets and stakeholders. And again, it might only be 80%, which is perfectly fine. It is significantly better than 1%, right? It's getting this shared thread between it. And once we have this standard now aligned, how are we naming our campaigns? How are we naming our placement? How are we naming our creative? By the way, a whole session in itself linking creative back to campaign activation. So, but how are we doing and how are we tracking our activities back into Adobe? What is the parameter? How do we create it? I mean, answering these questions here. Now we have the answer to that. We need to have a system to embed it. Traditionally, people were using spreadsheets, Google Sheets, Excel, whatever. It works fine if you're one man, maybe two. But as soon as you are an organization with more markets and 10 plus users and agencies, it will never work. It will break quite quick. So you need to have a system to kind of like enforce the process, maybe even with a compliance level on top, so validate that the process is being followed. And then you can start iterating and rolling it out. Yeah.
Before we wrap up here, I was wondering if someone listening in here is ambitious about the data and want to bring like data and data-informed decisions forward in this way in their organization, but being aware now that it needs to be a very cross-functional. What should they say in their organization to put this on the map?
I have always believed in the desire to use data to back up my decision is a very powerful argument to any leadership team. I would say any leadership team that says that we don't trust in data backing up your argument. I mean, then there's probably other challenges that needs to be solved. So having that idea that I, as a person, I want to be able to utilize this to make better decisions and driving that forward. It will probably be a good intro to put it on the map, put it on the agenda for talking points, and then raising the questions internally. Are we actually data-driven? Everybody says they're data-driven, but are they data-driven? Or is it like, well, the data tells us that we need to shift budgets here. Last year, we did it otherwise. We'll do it another way this year. That's not data-driven, right? That's kind of like an illusion to it. And we need to raise the question, needs to raise the awareness of this. And it's not that difficult. It's I think it's more, it's a question that can be raised that are, what do you call that? It's not a nice question. Do we want to be data driven? I mean, it's a self-answering question, I believe.
Yeah.
But the fact that it needs to be raised for it to drive attention, that can be a bit, not nice. I think it's a good way to raise awareness about it.
Exactly. So, just to sum up, and like, data quality is the problem of the problem. So it's what lies beneath everything that kind of doesn't add up to being data driven. And the shared data language is a way to ensure the high data quality that then feeds cross-organizational, if the organization buys into it, into data-driven decision making that we essentially all looking to.
I would say that if we follow the process, then we have the frame and the rule sets in the shared data language to go where we want to go. But it does mean that people need to follow the process, and that's why we can make it easier for them by providing the right tool sets for them, by providing education, by providing the validation, by providing insights and all this here to drive that process.
I guess when they follow the process, that's where we get the high data quality.
Exactly.
Cool.
Kasper, thank you so much for stopping by and enlightening us.
You're
all.
welcome. Oh, not me.
Kasper Rasmussen.
Thank you.
Also, you're here
Also
every
you.
week. Yeah. You're here every week. No, for stopping by and enlightening us on the shared data language. It's a very relevant topic, and for many it can be somewhat technical. So outlining it in this way and explaining it like how it connects, I think, enlightened me a lot also, and I hope you too.
There's very few things that can make me smarter.
Difficult to enlighten you, Kasper. Yeah, but I think actually you had a good point, by the way, just on the pillars part, right? There are many aspects to shared data language at the top, many aspects just within marketing, for instance. And now we just talked about the very broad aspect of what is a shared data language. And it could be interesting to talk more about the individual points in what does it mean for marketing? Well, what does it mean for our CM team? I mean, what does it mean for social media, etc.?
Yeah. So interesting. Thank you for stopping by. And if anyone is interested in knowing more, I guess they can find you in LinkedIn channels and in speaks around the world.
Yes.
Around the world?
Around the world.
Wow. Right?
That's a new agenda here.
Thank you for listening in. We'll see you all next week.